Stand by to initiate release sequencer. On my mark. 5.
We're on express elevator to hell. Going down.
2. 1. Mark.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mark, a.k.a. Derringer. Today is Sunday, September 23rd, and you are listening to episode 175 of the Instant Action Podcast, your weekly source for Planetside 2 news and information. As always, I'm brought to you by great listeners like you via the Support the Show tab on instantactionpodcast.com. So what's been going on with me? Well, I didn't tell you guys last week, but I went on another mini vacation. I was out on Cape Cod. I guess I could say the Cape, but if you're not from Massachusetts or New England, you may not, or the Cape may mean something different for you. Regardless, my wife and I were out on Cape Cod. My parents had rented a house for the week, and we were able to get away for a couple days. So the end of last week constituted my second vacation this year, and that'll be my last. Unfortunately, I'm not made of money, so therefore don't go on a ton of vacations each year, especially paying for a daughter in college. That doesn't help as well. But, had the obligatory fun out on the Cape, went to the beach a few days. My wife and I like to go hiking and stuff like that. So we hiked some nature trails, and we headed out into Provincetown. If you guys don't know what Provincetown is in Massachusetts, it's the town that's all the way up on the tip of Cape Cod. It's quite the community up there. Google it if you want to know more. They have a huge gay pride parade every year, and a bunch of other stuff that they have as well. It wasn't going on this year, but I've certainly been to it in past years, and it's definitely wild. But I did also get some time to play a little Planetside 2 earlier in the week before heading out on vacation this past Wednesday. So, like I said, did get my play sessions in. Actually had some good times in Planetside 2. I've been, like I said, doing a lot of that Stalker Infiltrator on VS, playing with the Derringer pistol, getting some good kills on people at various times, and being very proud of my play sessions, even though, I'm not going to lie, I've told you guys in the past, I'm a terrible pistol player. If I get 26, 30 kills in an hour, I'm happy, but I certainly don't always get anywhere near that. However, this past week, I felt like I've been playing it a little bit better and doing better with it and things like that, and definitely racked up more kills than usual. Maybe I'm getting the hang of it, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I'm just playing against some bad players. I don't know. But I'll be playing a bit more of that this week when I get a chance to log in as well. But that's enough about me. What's in store for this week's show? Well, first, I have a PTS update to go over, followed by a small hotfix that landed on the PlayStation 4. After that, I want to talk about some new vehicle weapons that Wrel teased on Twitter, and then talk a bit about bug reports. All that, plus another episode of Veteran's Voice and some listener email. So strap in as we hot drop into another episode of the Instant Action Podcast. So first up, like I said, this week we had a PTS update that landed on September 20th, and let's just roll right through this, beginning with the fact that engineer ammunition packs will no longer overlay over terminal icons on the map and the HUD. This was something that someone had asked for just recently on Reddit, and Wrel commented that Antoine had a chance to go in and work on that and correct that. So, again, in the past, engineer ammunition packs, they'd show up over terminal icons, and it would be tough to find them, specifically vehicle terminals, because let's be honest, if you're an engineer player like me, you know the first thing you do is you run over to the vehicle terminal and you drop some ammo there, because a ton of people are going to go there and resupply and give you XP. So good to have that happen. Next up for squads, they fixed it so the /sitrep command now has a more accurate message when you're defending a facility when you do not control the majority of capture points. They also fixed an issue where it would sometimes show negative capture time values. Obviously, there should never be a negative capture time value. They also changed some things up, so fire team leaders now show a star icon in the squad pane, although they will likely update that to be more visually distinct in the near future. With this, I would kind of like to see them highlight fire team leaders. I would like to see them highlight squad leaders, platoon leaders, anything like that. I mean, I know they're usually number one in the squad and whatnot, platoon leaders and things like that. But I'd love to just see a simple highlight of the name, reverse it. So instead of the name being in green, it's highlighted in green so you can see it more easier. I don't know. That's just something I would do instead of playing around with icons and stuff like that to show who leads and who doesn't lead. Next, fire team leaders can also now be promoted and demoted, similar to squad and platoon leaders. You are now able to also leave or rejoin voice channels, but not chat channels, using /leave channel or /join channel commands. Now, do note that you'll automatically rejoin a voice channel if your voice privileges change. For example, if you join a squad, you're promoted to squad leader, etc., or relogging completely from the game. But now you're able to use the /join channel and /leave channel for squad, platoon, fire team, leader, and proximity voice channels. So if someone in proximity, if you're tired of listening to people in proximity, /leave channel proximity gets you out of there. Things like that. Those are just nice quality of life changes to the game itself. Next, though, here's the real meat of this update, and it's some changes to vehicle weapons. First up, a new one, the Siege Breaker, which is for the TR Prowler and Harasser. They've updated it, and it's now pretty close to what they think is going to be the finished final product, and they're specifically looking for feedback on it, on both the Prowler and Harasser versions out on the PTS. And the text of this is that it fires a sequence of rockets meant for medium-range combat and makes use of some limited laser guidance capabilities. And I actually went out and watched some video that someone had put out on Reddit showing the different weapons themselves, and my God, when you watch the Siege Breaker fire, it fires so many rounds before it needs to reload. The person doing the video on the PTS showed it hitting the rear of a Lightning, and it put the Lightning to burning with only one round, and then it reloaded and fired 2 more shots and blew up a Lightning from behind. It fires fast. Very interesting weapon. Again, it's designed for medium range, but because it also has laser guidance capabilities, you can fire a longer shot and then kind of guide it in where you want it to go. Again, it's very it doesn't move as well as, say the Phoenix by any means, but certainly you do get some laser guidance with it. Also, for the Mag Rider and VS Mag Rider and VS Harasser, they changed up the Aurora, so now it has the charge-up weapon. It fires a singular projectile, which pierces through enemy vehicles and infantry without limit. It's still a work in progress. They do know it doesn't have a proper reticle, and they want to make some additional art and statistical polish to it. But again, they want you to go out on PTS, check it out, use it, see how it feels to you as well. You'll note this is the first VS weapon that's getting the ability to fire through, or actually, is that the second VS weapon? Yeah, it is too, because the Aphelion also recently got the piercing ability as well. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going on this particular one. The Aurora looks nice, though. I'll say I like the projectile that comes out of it. It's kind of a squashed sphere, I guess, is kind of what it looks like. I don't know. It's interesting, and I think there should be more weapons in the game that are able to pierce. I don't have a problem with it. Next up, NC, Vanguard and Harasser, Paladin. They say they're still toying with the concepts, and they're most likely going to revisit the drawing board on the weapon. And that's the main reason for that is because the Enforcer and the Mjolnir fill pretty much every role that you need on a Vanguard and Harasser. And they feel right now if just adding another high damage, high velocity weapon to the arsenal isn't a compelling option for people to purchase the Paladin. Therefore, why put something out there if nobody's going to purchase it? So they say that they're currently working on some projectile tech for various other weapons and might wait until that tech is finished before touching this weapon again. They say right now it's pretty much in a broken state on PTS for both the Vanguard and Harasser, but you're more than welcome to play around with it. Now I'm curious what that other projectile tech that they're working on for other weapons that they're talking about bringing into the game itself. Next up, the Enforcer had some changes to it. Enforcer, Vanguard, and NC Harasser. Its blast inner radius was increased out to 1 meter. Its blast damage was increased to 175. And basically the goal here was to knock the 3-shot infantry kill of the Enforcer down to a 2-shot kill by way of a blast damage buff. And this makes the choice between Enforcer and the Halberd a bit more preference-based than it was before. Moving on to the Terran Republic, the Vulcan on the Prowler and Harasser had its maximum damage reduced to 10 meters on the Harasser, its minimum damage range reduced to 50 meters on the Harasser. On the Prowler, its max damage range was reduced to 15 meters and its minimum to 60 meters. And the reason they did this is because they feel the June 12th update gave the Vulcan some much-needed power, but they went too far. And it began to overshadow the power and role of a mid and long-range weapons while surpassing other factional close combat quarters weapons as well. So they're pulling back the range buff that it got, but leaving the rate of fire increase that they gave it in June a low, so that playing to the weapon's effective range is more important when using the Vulcan itself. Next, the Siren on the Vanu, Harasser, and the Mag Rider. They reduced the cone of fire bloom on both of them, and basically what this does is it changes the number of shots required until hitting the maximum cone of fire, and it changes it from 2 to 3 while firing at the maximum rate of fire. And the goal here is that tighter groupings are intended to increase the effectiveness of the weapon over range. Moving on to the flashes. First, the Buzzard on the NC variant. It now has a utility option for primed shells, which remove the minimum arming distance of each projectile. The Starfall, which is the Vanu Sovereignty Flash weapon, had its direct damage reduced to 175, its inner damage increased to 100, its outer radius reduced to 2 meters, and the goal here was to increase the number of reloads needed to kill the lightning from the rear by 1, as well as non-composite armor harassers. The blast damage adjustment gives a bit more potency against infantry, and they've reduced the outer radius to emphasize direct hits with the weapon itself. I think these are some needed changes because the Starfall is a little overpowered in the game, or at least was until this PTS update. Moving on to the Pillager for the Terran Republic, they made it so these projectiles now pass through infantry, but do not pass through vehicles. And that makes sense, for a flame weapon, that why would it pass through a vehicle? But sure, it should be able to pass through infantry. They also increased its direct damage to 30. They increased its burning duration to 3.5 seconds, and they increased the projectile's lifespan to 1 second, and finally reduced some of the drag on the projectiles themselves. Next, just for the cloaks themselves, the Wraith Cloak on the Flash, the cooldown delay went from 10 seconds down to 5 seconds, which we kind of expected something like that to come down the pipeline. Now, kind of taking a little sidetrack on the Wraith Cloak for the Flash itself, a couple days ago, somebody on Reddit, it's Ambarabakoko, somebody I'd never heard of before, threw out a suggestion saying, why not take the normal, Flash, which has its Wraith, And the suggestion was to basically remove the weapons from a flash and instead add fuel tanks on the weapon slot, much like they do with the ESFs, where you can add external fuel tanks instead of wing weapons. And what this would do is it would give a greater uptime, and it wouldn't really hurt the cooldown of 5 seconds after uncloaking, but would give the Flash the ability to be more like a transport vehicle, which some people still use it as in the game itself. And the nice thing about this, though, is that Wrel did respond and said that something like this is on the table. And if you had that equipped, it will most likely remove the cloak cooldown as well. So that's certainly interesting, because right now the reason the cloak cooldown is being thrown out there is because there's too many people with these new flash weapons on them, uncloaking, unloading on somebody, recloaking, and then running away and hiding without taking any damage. So now if you're just using it as a transport, you'd be able to have cloak last a lot longer. You'd be able to cloak and uncloak at will as long as you still have the cloaking technology. So you wouldn't see as many flashes uncloaking and then, unloading in the back of you without you knowing, and then recloaking and driving away. So it makes it kind of the best of both worlds. So if somebody still wants to just use the flash as a transport out in the game itself, they would be able to. So I think that this is a good idea. And I would love to see something like that finally make it to the game itself. And it looks like that could be coming based on Wrel's response to that. So next, Valkyrie got some love as well. Its small arms resistance was changed from 75 and upped to 90. It's still not back to where it was, but they did admit that the last adjustment to the small arms resistance reduced the effectiveness of it as a combat platform. But they admitted that it hit the Valkyrie harder than they would have liked. So they're dialing it back a bit to a more conservative number, and they'll continue to tune it as necessary. Now, Shadow Insignis, who I've talked about in the past, says 90% still isn't good enough. We need to go a little bit higher, but I'm willing to allow them to start somewhere rather than just continue to be at 75. At 75, like I said, it feels like it's made out of paper mache. So getting it to at least 90 is a good starting point, in my opinion. And that was the basic PTS update in a nutshell. Some of this, the majority of this is stuff that will come to life pretty quickly, I imagine. Ammo packs, the squad stuff. Not the Siegebreaker, Aurora, or Paladin, because those are just out there on PTS, and that's where they're going to live for a while. But the Enforcer changes, Vulcan changes, Saharan changes, Buzzard Stalfar Pillager, Wraith Cloak changes, the Valkyrie changes, all that stuff should come really quickly. I wouldn't be surprised if we even see some of that stuff this week or next week out on live rather than just sitting around on PTS for too long, because a lot of the stuff is simple changes that they've just thrown out there that they don't need to do a lot of testing on. Whereas, like I said, you can expect the Siegebreaker, Aurora, and Paladin to remain out there on the PTS for a while. But with that, let's move on to the PS4 side of game updates. Now, this also dropped on September 20th, and it was just a hotfix, not a game update like I might have alluded to. And really, it was just a speculative fix, was put in place to reduce the memory leak-related crashes. Now, if you don't play on the PS4, if you're a PC player, you have no idea what I'm talking about, because you're not experienced these things. But unfortunately, what has been happening to the PS4 players is they've been experiencing random first they started experiencing the same hitching and the FPS drops that PC players have been experiencing for a while when this last game update dropped. But in addition to that, they've also been experiencing a huge crashing issue with the game itself, where it would completely blue screen and knock you out of Planetside 2. Some people even reported that it forced their PlayStation 4s to shut down completely, and then they'd have to do a hard reboot. Planetside 2 is basically crashing people's PlayStation 4s. And that is absolutely awful for a game. I mean, you're not going to get people playing your game if they're going to constantly crash. And I mean, PlayStation 4 folks are reporting after 20 minutes of play or of grabbing a Valkyrie or any other vehicle and trying to fly to the crown on Indar, they'd crash. Or if they'd eject out of any aircraft, they'd crash. Regardless, tons of crashes and blue screening on the PS4 for Planetside 2 players. Now, again, this is just a speculative fix. The devs didn't come out and say this is the fix to crashing on the PS4, because unfortunately, even after this got put in place, players are still experiencing crashes. So if you've held off, if you're a PS4 player and you've held off playing because of the crashes, you're probably still going to experience them. But I will say that a lot of people are reporting that they're getting longer play sessions in, half hour, 90 minutes before they get their first crash. But they are still experiencing hitching issues. They are still experiencing FPS issues as you get into larger fights. But I do know from talking with the devs that they are aware of them. They are working on them. They just don't have an ETA on them all for the PS4. It's an awful situation to be in when you're on the PS4 side of the game. I'm not going to lie. It's one of the worst feelings in the game, to quote somebody I know. But it's something that the devs are aware of, and PS4 players, you got to give them a chance to fix it before just abandoning the game in droves, like I know a lot of you want to. There's talks out there of having a day without Planetside 2 on the PS4 where they ask everybody to log out and not play the game itself. I don't think we're at that point or need to be at that point, but I want to give it to the devs and say they are aware of them, guys. They know what are out there. They're working on them. If you're crashing, submit reports after them so they know that it's still going on for you. That's how you can help them track it down and figure out what's causing the crashes on the PS4 side. I think they're getting better or closer to solving all of them on the PC side. I mean, we still have instances where there's some hitching. I talked to Drew about performance a little bit earlier this week, and he says they're aware of different things, and some stuff has been escalated to higher level people within the company itself to track stuff down, but they're fixing things as they come across them, and just to give them the chance to fix them before abandoning the game. And that, hearing stuff like that from Drew and seeing posts like that from Nick or Wrel or other people is at least good faith within the community that they know what's going on, they feel your pain, and they're working on correcting it. But now, instead of pain, I'm going to throw it over to Romas with this week's Veteran's Voice.
I read it all the time in chat when attacking a base. This fight was going so well. Faction sucks. Nobody does nothing. Blah, blah, blah. I'm a wiener. Well, Oscar Mayer, do you know what you need? A wienermobile. The Thunderer is the heart and soul of any attack. When you go to spawn back in, look at your options. Are you spawning at only 1 point, maybe 2? Go grab a bus. They're inexpensive and necessary. Not to mention that while you deploy one, they print certs like Vanu's witnesses print flyers. I'd recommend kitting it out with Deploy Shield, or if you have the certs, Maximum Stealth. Both have their uses and are very effective depending on where you put them. Stealth especially. Racer chassis for quick travel times and gate shield diffusers are also very useful. Remember, the only difference between a scrub lord and a Superman is learning from your mistakes. Now I'm gonna do some racing of my own. Move over, Bloggins! Make room! I'm gonna make Rainbow Road my bitch!
You know, that's pretty good information. I mean, I listen to every Veteran's Voice, obviously, because they're good information on them. But that's probably one of the better ones that I've listened to in a while, and because it is important information about pulling a sunder. I think a lot of people don't pull sunders as much as they should be in the game itself. So, Romus, thank you again for bringing that information to our attention. But moving on to topic number 3 this week, it's basically Wrel on Twitter playing around with new versions of the Basilisk. And if you guys haven't seen this, I'm going to include a link to it in this week's show notes because I recommend you go and check it out, because Wrel's been doing some more practicing with the software program Maya for 3D design within games themselves. And he'd really like to replace the main battle tank Basilisk with some Empire-specific versions. He did say someday. But he put some pictures out there of stuff that he's been working on. And he did also say that he would love them to be small stat variants on the current Basilisks, but would still be meant as the new player jack of all trades weapon, though. And if you go and actually take a look at these things, the first one, it kind of looks like the Paladin. If you've seen it on PTS, the one I just talked about a little while ago, it looks like 2 of those side by side. He put a TR version out there, which looks like it's 2 Mercies side by side. But I like where he's going with this. And this is just a simple one. Design these things out, slap them together, make them work, and have something that looks different for each faction. I'm all for that. It's little things like that, little nuances within the game itself that show the devs care. I mean, I can't imagine this takes up a ton of his time, and I would also imagine he's probably doing some of this on his spare time outside of work itself, just to mock some of these things up, to play around with it and learn Maya better than he already knows it. But doing stuff like this just adds a little polish to the game itself, something a little extra to the game. And sure, I know you'll say, why is he working on, Maya when he should be working or spending all his time reverting the Combined Arms Initiative and fixing Zergs and stuff like that? There are many heads to the Hydra that is Planetside 2. I'm happy that Wrel's working on these, and I, for one, want him to continue to make more things like this. So, again, I'll include a link to this. You guys can check them out. I like it. I like stuff like this. It's the little extra things to the game itself that keep me coming back day after day, week after week, month after month to Planetside 2, and just more reasons why it's my favorite game out there. But with that, let's move on to the 4th and final topic this week before we tackle some listener email. And that last topic this week is regarding bug reports, because if you follow Nick on Twitter, you note that he tweeted last week that they just fixed an issue that caused them to lose the last day's worth of /bug reports. So if you had submitted a /bug report in the past day on Planetside 2 or on the PTS, they want you to resubmit those reports. And also he says, thank you for helping make Planetside 2 a better game. So I thought I'd take, this is 2 things. This is a PSA. So if you've been out on the PTS, or if you were out on live within the game itself, and this was on September 20th, when they dropped the new stuff out there, basically they had lost every bug report that it was made in-game. I'm going to say probably most of September 19th and a good portion of September 20th as well. So if you did a /bug report, you probably want to try to reproduce it and make it happen again. Probably easier said than done, but easier to do on PTS than it is to do on live. But in addition to this, I just wanted to take a second and talk about other ways that you can report bugs to Planetside 2. And obviously, the easiest way to do it is to use the /bug command in-game. I don't remember what the PS4 version of it is, but there's a command as well, or a way to do it on PS4. I should look that up real quick. Well, it's, get into chat and do /bug, and that'll bring up the bug report for a PS4. But the other way to do bug reports is there's something out there called the DGC Daybreak Games Company issue tracker, which I don't know that everybody out there is aware of, that this is an actual thing. And on this issue tracker itself, there's a decent dashboard of it, but what it does is it gives a list of all hot issues that are going on, any top issues that are being tracked by them, any confirmed bugs that they have listed, any unconfirmed bugs they have listed, any recently resolved issues, improvement requests, feature requests, any of them that have been recently updated. But there's a lot of additional stuff here in case you need to, log an issue or whatever. And there's a whole bunch of options for that as well. And I just wanted to throw that out there as something new in case somebody is not aware of this option out there in the game itself, as another way to put bugs and other issues out there so Daybreak Games is aware of it. But with that, that's enough for bugs and stuff like that. Let's move on to housekeeping this week.
Housekeeping. Housekeeping.
Come back later, please.
Housekeeping.
Not now.
Housekeeping.
Go away.
I coming anyway?
And I did get another email this week, and it again from Phoenix Briggs, and he writes, Topic 1, everyone always jokes on PS4 about them being a developer, but I do wish that I could meet or play with one so I could show how the PS4 is actually going in the community on a more ... tactical guy. And then he says, Topic 2, I have absolutely no YouTube videos for Planetside 2, but I can start to help out with PS4 players. Topic 3, that one redneck dude. Why do I love this dude so much? 11 out of 10 would laugh again. What nation is he playing? Because I would say he is TR. Afterwards, I actually know a bug that I can use in a Valkyrie or Galaxy over Indar, but it's useless. So there is a giant hole in the map that leads into the ocean. Yeah, if you fly with some form of ejection seat over it, you will land in the hole without taking damage, and you may walk in the water until you leave the map. Topic 4, Battlefield 5 was a good beta, but if I buy it, I'll still play Planetside because I own both, so I can choose between the two. I didn't play Black Ops 4, but I don't really like the Black Ops area. Battle Royale to Battlefield 5 seems interesting, but it would work because Battlefield 5 has more open area than Black Ops 4. Even if Osher didn't come out, I would still play it with or without my other games. PS4, the sad TR Valkyrie pilot Phoenix Briggs signing off to sad Germanic crying. So Phoenix Briggs, well, you're a little all over the board there, but you joke about or talk about playing with the developers on PS4. Have you tried reaching out to seriously, and anybody who's listening to this, anybody on the PS4, have you guys tried reaching out to Wrel or to Drew, to Nick, to any of the developers out there who are interactive with the community itself and asking them, do they play on the PS4 and stuff like that? I'm sure they do, but Drew specifically is playing a ton online with people. I wouldn't be surprised if you asked him, he'd play on PS4 with you as well. I'm not going to go into the other stuff, Battlefield 5 and Black Ops 4 and stuff like that. Those will just come out when they come out, and we'll find out who's leaving and who's not leaving. But that's going to be it for this week's show. How can you get in touch with me, the show itself? Well, as always, visit my website, www.instantactionpodcast.com. Send me an email like Phoenix Briggs did at instantactionshow@gmail.com. Call me, leave me a voicemail, 347-4VM4PS2 or 347-486-4772. You can follow the show on Twitter at InstActPodcast, or you can follow me personally on Twitter at The Derringer. But in closing, if you've enjoyed the show, please leave me a review on your podcast listening avenue of choice, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or anywhere else. Also, feel free to tell your friends and outfit mates about the show. And finally, thanks for listening, and keep spamming that Join Combat, formerly known as Instant Action button.
Get your arms combined.